Hi, I'm Renee and welcome to the True Kitchen. I am here in Vancouver and I will be teaching you guys how to make a gluten-free Sui Mai. So Sunday is usually pretty hustling, bustling in like Chinese restaurants for dim sum. That's why I want to share this recipe with you. My partner is celiac, so he can't eat a lot of the dim sum in regular restaurants, and he really appreciates that I change up the recipes to make everything gluten-free. And if you guys signed up for the class, you'll receive a list of ingredients for you to buy and gather. You can go ahead and get all of that now. If you're not gluten-free and still want to participate, no problem. I will give you the recipe that I normally use for a regular Sui Mai recipe, and you can also grab your regular all-purpose flour. If you don't have all-purpose flour, you can use whole wheat flour, just to make it even better because it's healthier with more fiber. I do recommend either an all-purpose or a bread flour, so there's more protein in that and you won't need to knead it so much, because if you do have more protein in the flour, then it gets chewier and the wrapper will actually be a lot more thin and easier to handle, okay? So if you want to go ahead and do the gluten-free version, you can come and take a look at my ingredients here. I know there are a few participants that donated. Thank you so much. Today's proceeds will go to my friend Kenny Wong's mask foundation. So he's going to deliver masks to local clinics in Vancouver, and he's already done about 3,000 masks, and I'm so happy that we can support him with this initiative. So yeah, this is a Mother's Day special class, so hopefully you're watching with your mother, your daughter, your grandma, or you can recreate this recipe and take it to them or deliver it to them if you want to. So I don't know if those of you watching know what dim sum means. So dim sum in Chinese is dim and sum or dian, xing. So dim or dian means a little piece of, and then the xing or sum means heart. So literally translated, it means a little piece of your heart, and I think that's so cute. And I hope you guys share that with your family, that you're sharing a little piece of your heart with them. So Sui Mai is very, very, very common, and that's my favorite food to eat. And I love to use gluten-free flours, which are what we have here. So I have a glutinous rice flour, which is not gluten, so this is a very different spelling. It's T-I-N, G-L-U-T-I-N. It means chewy or sweet. So this is a sweet rice, actually. So it's pearly in texture, and if you ever buy glutinous rice, you notice it's very round, and that's what they use in Thailand to make mango sticky rice. So it's a sticky rice. If you can't find this flour, you can also blend the sticky rice and make a flour like this. So glutinous rice flour, we have regular rice flour. This is just rice blended into a flour. And to make it a little bit chewy, we also have this tapioca starch. So tapioca is from the plant called cassava or yucca, and it's grown in Southeast Asia or Latin America, and it's very filling, it's starchy, and it's quite yummy if you can buy it in local grocery stores like T&T and Asian grocery stores. There usually is a layer of wax over that cassava or yucca plant to help it from getting transported overseas to make it to Vancouver to your plate. So tapioca is from the yucca plant cassava roots. And then also we have some xanthan gum. Xanthan gum is used in a lot in gluten-free cooking. It's to bind flours together so they don't fall apart. And I, as a dietitian, love to increase fiber in everything that I do. So I have psyllium husk, or if you don't have fiber, you don't have to add this. You can also add like a scoop of Metamucil if you want to increase the fiber. But I love psyllium husk because it actually absorbs sugar. I mean, sorry, it's not sugar. Absorb water. And it actually helps the dough get less dry. If you don't have ceiling husks, the dough you'll have to use very, very quickly or else it dries up really fast. So that's one thing about gluten-free cooking. The doughs you can't leave around for too long or else it'll just dry out and you can't roll it out. So if you're using regular all-purpose flour or bread flour at home, you can actually reuse the flour. You can freeze it and then thaw it and work it again. No problem, but gluten-free flour, it's not really possible to freeze it and thaw it out and roll it out again because it just crumbles and won't really keep. So one bad thing about gluten-free dumpling wrappers is you have to use it right away or else it doesn't really work. Okay, and then to make the color, so those of you who had Sui Mai know that the outside wrapper is yellow, and normally that's a coloring, or in the recipe it's egg yolks, but egg yolks don't make that drastic of a change. Today I'm actually adding some turmeric powder. So turmeric powder is known to be an anti-inflammatory agent. So those of you who have raw turmeric can go ahead and just get shave some turmeric inside, or we're going to add a teaspoon of this into our flour mixture. All right, so before you start anything, you want to make sure you have boiling water. I'm going to turn on my kettle, or you can actually boil some water in the pot right here. So which I actually already have. This is for steaming my dumplings later, so I don't have to worry too much about not having enough boiling water. And if you have a basket like this, you can go ahead and grab your dim sum basket. If you don't have a dim sum basket, don't worry. Just grab a big plate and you can line it with either parchment paper or later on I can cut some vegetables and line it thinly on the bottom, and you can also eat the vegetables after it steams. Okay, I'm going to put this aside for now. Waiting for the water to boil. It's getting there. And we're going to measure out the gluten-free flour. So if you don't use gluten-free flour, you're using all-purpose flour, it's 1 cup of all-purpose or bread flour to about like 3/4 cups of boiling water. So both wrappers need boiling water or else it doesn't work. Okay, so make sure it's really hot. And before we put it in, we also want to make sure that it's hot as possible. All right, so what I'm going to put in first is the rice flour. So this recipe will make about 30 to 40 dumplings, depends on how thin you roll it and how big each dumpling is, okay? So the rice flour goes in first. It's about 110 grams. I have a scale here. You can buy this scale on Amazon or in your local grocery store. They should have some scales like this in the baking aisle. Grams are more accurate, so this recipe calls for 110 grams of regular rice flour. Whoop, that's 102. Okay, I'm going to put that away. And then what's next? We got to have our tapioca flour. So tapioca flour is 120 grams. 120 grams of tapioca flour. Okay, finished with this, put that away. And then we have the glutinous rice flour. And the glutinous rice flour, we're going to use 95 grams. The tar each time so I don't get confused. 95 grams of glutinous rice flour goes in. To our pot. Okay, so that's all with our flours. And now we're going to add a little bit of turmeric to turn this whole thing yellow. I have a tablespoon over here. Sorry, teaspoon. So we're going to add about half a teaspoon of turmeric. This will be quite nice. Turn that over. Turmeric is quite easy to find nowadays, so I wouldn't, go too crazy about going to different types of stores. So xanthan gum, again, so we're going to add 5 grams of xanthan gum. I'm going to use the back of my spoon just to help the xanthan gum over. Xanthan gum is derived from plant bacteria, and it is a gelling and glue, kind of making this whole wrapper stick together and not fall apart. So this is quite important. If you don't have it, then you need to make sure that you use really hot water, and you're going to have to use the wrapper right away. It still will work, but it just won't work as well without xanthan gum. Bob's Red Mill has a brand, xanthan gum. You can also see if you can go to the local bulk section of your grocery store and see if they have xanthan gum. And this lasts a long time. Just keep it in a dry area. Okay, and then lastly, it's our psyllium husk. So again, if you don't have psyllium, you don't have to add it. I'm going to add 5 grams of that also. So I'll review the ingredients once I finish adding it all in. Okay, so what I've added in here is 110 grams of rice flour. I have 120 grams of tapioca flour. I have 95 grams of glutinous rice flour and 5 grams of xanthan gum, a half a teaspoon of turmeric, and another 5 grams of psyllium husk. All right, so that's good. Now we're gonna go and get some cooking oil. So I have some grapeseed oil over here. You can use avocado oil, you can use olive oil. We're not cooking these at a high temperature, so extra olive oil, virgin oil is fine. We're just steaming it, so that's never going to get past 100 degrees Celsius. You can use, sunflower oil, just any type of cooking oil that you have in hand, you can use that. So that's about 20 grams of cooking oil. Okay, so I finished adding that. And then once again, I'm going to turn the water back on to boil because it needs to be really, really hot. I just want to make sure that it's hot enough. Okay, and in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and grab myself a spatula or a wooden spoon. So either one will work. Don't need the scale anymore. I'm going to put this over here. And you can, in the meantime, stir everything together in the pan, in the mixing bowl, all right? So for those who are using regular all-purpose flour, it's just 1 cup of flour, okay? I'm doing quite a lot here. That 1 cup of flour will actually make you about, 30 to 40 dumplings also. Okay, sorry, I made a mistake. I do need the weights again, and I just want to make sure that I get the water right. So it is 1 cup of boiling water or 250 grams. Water is the same density as 1 to 1. So the amount of grams for water is the same amount as the milliliters. So I will just use the scale. It's 250 milliliters or 1 cup of boiling water. So when you pour the water in, you will see that the flour turns translucent, and that's exactly what you want. And if the flour doesn't turn translucent, that means the water is not hot enough and you have to reboil it, okay? All right, so I'm going to add 250 grams or 1 cup into this guy, and make sure you don't touch it with your fingers just yet. It is quite hot. I'm going to bring it up to the front here, and you can see the water is translucent. I'm going to mix it really well with my wooden spoon. And if you guys have any questions, because since I'm doing everything here, I can't really answer you and I don't really see what's going on. My assistant, Vanessa, you can say hi to her. She's going to be helping me with the tech today. So I'm glad that we have someone helping me, and she'll try to answer your questions as quickly as possible. If she doesn't get to them, after this live, we will answer each question if you type it in the comments section one by one. And if you don't want to type your questions there, you can always email me at info@truenosh.com to get your questions answered. All right. So well, those of you who are using all-purpose flour is going to add about 3/4 cups of boiling water first. You're going to mix it to see if it's enough. If not, then you're going to add 1 tablespoon of hot boiling water at a time just to make it into a dough. All right, so after about 5 minutes of mixing, it's going to look somewhat like a pie crust. All right, so now you're going to use your hands and you're going to squeeze this like this. So both glutinous flours, like all-purpose flour or bread flour, will look the same like this. You're just going to use your hands to squeeze it into a nice dough ball, okay? This is still quite warm. If you want to, make sure that you don't scorch yourself, that's fine. And what you want to do is to fold and press and fold and press. So what I'm doing here is I'm folding it in itself and pressing it down in the bowl. And as I do that, you are getting all the flour and water incorporated into this flour to make a nice dough ball. And it's going to look very nice and yellow. Yeah, so all-purpose flour or bread flour, you'll also use the same amount of turmeric, 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric to 1 cup of flour, and it will turn yellow. I would not suggest using pastry flour because there's not enough protein. To increase the protein, you can add, eggs to it too. But we're actually going to use egg in our filling. If you don't have eggs, you don't really need to worry about it too much. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I have a nice piece of dough before I move on to do my filling, okay? So what you have at the end of your kneading process, regular all-purpose flour might need another 5 minutes of kneading. The glutinous or the gluten-free flour, you don't have to knead it so much because we're not developing any gluten. This is just all flours without gluten formed into a nice dough like this. All right, this is pretty big. This will actually make more than 40 because if you think about it, Sui Mai is an open face dumpling, so they look like flowers. So you don't need as much wrapper as you would if you did a closed pot stick or a closed dumpling. Okay, so I am going to have this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which is fine because I love Sui Mai so much. Sometimes I even dream of having dim sum. All right, so clean your hands and you're going to let this dough ball sit for 5 minutes while we make the filling, okay? All right. So I added boiling water. I also teach a little Chinese in my cooking classes, and I want to teach you the word for water in Chinese. It's shui and soy. So shui is Mandarin and soy is Cantonese, okay? So now you can order water at a Chinese restaurant. Perfect. So now for our filling. So we have some ground pork. Over here I have a pound of ground pork. In Chinese it's called 猪肉 or 猪油. All right, 猪肉 or 猪油. 猪肉 is Mandarin and 猪油 is Cantonese. Great. So I actually got some really, really lean pork over here. And we have some raw shrimp that I've rehydrated, or not rehydrated, defrosted I meant. And these are raw shrimp, they're deveined already, and they're ready to go. So raw deveined shrimp. So if you see, just make sure you check there are no veins in the shrimp. If there is, then you would just go over the top with a small knife and take out the vein, okay? So I'm gonna take the water out and we're going to rough chop the shrimp into small pieces. And we're going to add that into our mixing bowl with the ground pork. So if you don't eat pork, no worries. You can use chicken. And you can go to the butcher shop and ask them to ground chicken for you, or even turkey. Right? And in regular dim sum restaurants, they will have quite a lot of fat in their ground meats. So you might find if you use a very lean cut of meat, you might need to add more shrimp or just a little drizzle of healthier oils to decrease your amount of saturated fat intake. I had about 6 shrimp that I cut into small pieces like the size of my thumb. If you want to see, take a look. Yeah. You can add smaller shrimp if you want. I wouldn't add cooked shrimp, so it has to be raw because it's got to steam with the wrapper and everything. And then I'm going to throw in 1 egg. Normally it's the egg whites because you'll use the egg yolk in the wrapper, but today we already used turmeric, so instead we're going to add a whole egg into here. If you don't have egg, you don't have to use it. Okay, I'm going to put that away. Just right there. And we have some seasoning. So I have some white pepper here. Chinese food is all about the white pepper. It's more gingery and it's a little bit less spicy. So I encourage you to smell the white pepper once you buy it after you ground it. It's very distinct. And we're going to have 1 teaspoon of salt, and whatever salt you have is fine. I have some Himalayan pink salt that has a little bit more minerals in there. And we have some Chinese cooking wine. So I'm going to come over here and show you the Chinese cooking wine that I have. It's the Hua Diao or Xiao Xing, basically, is the type of cooking wine. You can take a picture and I will send out that recipe. There's a lot of different brands you can use. This one has, if you smell it, it has more some like caramel flavors in it. And it is a brown colored cooking wine. This is more like the common cooking wine that you can buy. If you don't have this, you can just go ahead and add a little bit of white wine. You don't have to go out and buy a whole bottle. But I have a teaspoon here, so I'm going to actually add 3 teaspoons. So 3 teaspoons can add up to 1 tablespoon. All right, this smells really good. All right, and one last thing is some ginger. All right, so ginger is a tuber, which is not a root because it grows sideways. I'm gonna use about like a knobblet of ginger, and with this, I'm gonna use my spoon to sort of peel off some ugly parts, but I'm not gonna actually peel all of it. I like to keep the skins of ginger just because there's more fiber and antioxidants that are left behind. Ginger and turmeric are both tubers, and they're quite high in anti-inflammatory properties. So yeah, if you know, obviously wash it when you bring it home, and you're gonna use a microplane or a shaver to just, or you can usually just mince it and put it into your pork. This is about a tablespoon's worth of ginger. Be careful with your fingers. This thing is really, really sharp. You want to watch while you're doing this. So I apologize if I'm not looking at you right now. But once again, if you have questions, Vanessa is here to answer your question. And if she doesn't get to you in time, I will try my best to answer you right after I finish cooking, okay? I think there are some familiar faces that are watching today. I see that I think Sandra, who runs an awesome food dumpling tour in Richmond. I met her last year. Say hi. Yeah, I can't wait to start up our farmers markets and in-person cooking classes, and maybe we can do some collaboration. So thanks for joining. Happy Sunday. So after this dumpling cooking class, we're actually going to move to my mini yoga studio in my living room, and we're going to just do some stretching, a really quick vinyasa flow if you want. I'm in my yoga gear already. I mean, every day I'm wearing stretchy pants. because we don't have to go to the office. All right, so I shaved my ginger into my pork. I'm going to put some of these things away. And I'm going to review what I have in this mixture. Okay, so we have about a pound of pork. We have about 6 large raw shrimp. I cut them up into about like 1.5 centimeters. I have 1 whole egg. I have 1 teaspoon of salt. I have about 1 tablespoon of shredded ginger or minced ginger, and also about 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper. White pepper is quite important. If you don't have white pepper, you can use black pepper. It just gives a very different flavor to your dim sum. And then we have this Chinese cooking wine, the Hua Diao or Shaoxing cooking wine. We have about 1 tablespoon or 3 teaspoons of that in there, and that's it. And I'm sure those of you who are watching notice I still have a carrot. You can either use the carrot, kind of rough chop some little bits and put it as a garnish. Today we're using some goji berries as a garnish. I love goji berries because they're really beautiful and red. The carrot can also be your parchment paper. So if you don't have parchment paper, just use whatever vegetables you have and cut small thin slices and lay it on top of your plate that you're going to use to steam or your steamer basket. So I'm going to mix this really well. You will notice that it's not really coming together because of the egg whites and the wine. The more you mix it, the better it is. And I'm going to show you a technique that will definitely bring this filling all together. All right, so a lot of people ask me, well, if I don't eat meat, what can I use? Well, of course, because I'm kind of the queen of changing up meat dishes to become vegetarian or vegan, and I'm also, you know, trying out a lot of regular recipes that are not gluten-free and making it gluten-free. So if you are at home and you're watching, you're like, oh, I'm vegan or vegetarian, you can use a can of chickpeas, mush them up. You can cut some onions, mince some onions and put them into here, some ginger, the same seasonings like Chinese cooking wine, the pepper, the salt, and the ginger can go in here with some chickpeas. If you don't have chickpeas, you can use lentils. Red lentils work just as well, mixed with some tofu. Anything you can find that are in the lentil or bean family that you can mush and mix with some tofu or tempeh can be substituted with that 1 pound of pork and shrimp, okay? If you are mixing with tofu, I would suggest firm tofu, all right? If you're using really smooth tofu, it's just going to turn into water. It's not going to hold its shape. So firm tofu or extra firm tofu to substitute the shrimp, and 1 can of chickpeas drained, or 1 can of, like, you know, cannoli beans or fagioli beans that are white can mimic the pork. You can use that the same way. All right, so I'm going to finish mixing this, and we're going to start rolling out our wrappers. So this mixture, I'm going to bring it a little bit closer to you guys. Looks like this now, and it doesn't exactly look like a filling that's come together. So what you want to do, I'm going to come back here, you're going to grab it with your hands and whack it down, just like making burgers or meatballs. This helps disperse the fat and the ingredients, so it kind of is more of a sturdy filling. Okay, it doesn't have to be too hard. Don't go too crazy with this filling. And just do this 5 to 10 times, and it should kind of give it a good firm texture. And you want this because there's not much fat in this filling. So if you were to go out and eat at a dim sum restaurant, you'll notice it's very moist and tender and actually bouncy. So it is known in the dim sum world that you would add lard to this mixture to kind of help with that flavor and also texture, or it gives it a bouncy texture. But at home, we can control all of these ingredients, and if you can buy a leaner cut of meat and ground it yourself, even better. Now you know exactly where your meat is from. Okay, so I'm just gonna do this a few more times. Then I'm gonna wash my hands and we're gonna roll out our wrappers. So the wrappers, if you don't have a rolling pin, you can go ahead and use the Chinese cooking wine bottle as a rolling pin, or any wine bottle, or any round soy sauce bottle that you have laying around. It's fine if you wash it or wrap a saran wrap around the bottle. Okay, all right, one more time. And then I'm going to go and wash this meat off my hands. And you're gonna see it looks quite round and a nice looking filling. I'll be right back. Okay. Cool. So those of you who know me, I am a registered dietitian, and I'm basically the queen of cooking without sugar. That's the whole idea about True Nosh, is having real food, real wholesome food, right? So yeah, look at our website for more recipes. I love to cook Asian fusion foods. So right now I'm just cutting little discs from our carrot to line our plate or steamer basket. Okay, so I have a steamer basket here. I like using carrots because it gives it a really nice color to our dim sum. Cabbage is also a really good option. And if you don't have vegetables lying around, just use a parchment paper and cover the bottom. Make sure there is some holes that the steam can get through. You can just poke holes through your parchment paper, and that will look great. And I love to hear, you know, how it tastes afterwards. You should leave it in the comments, or you can always email me. Okay, so I have, you know, my carrots laid down on the bottom. Okay, and then I have my meat, and I have my teaspoon that I've used for scooping out the filling. I'm going to open my goji berries. If you have some carrots left, or a lot of people use like shrimp roe or fish roe to go on top of your Sui Mai, go ahead and do that. I'm going to take this away because we don't really need this anymore. And we have a nice working surface, basically, to roll our dough in. I'm going to take our dough out. And we're going to get some rice flour. Actually, for this dough, the best way to roll this is to actually get a little bit of oil to oil up your hands, right? So it's very different than regular flour. So I'm going to just go ahead and rip this open, or not open, but, you know, rip a small part of it. My hands are a little bit oily, which is great. You might have noticed that your dough has gotten a little bit dry, but a little bit of oil will help that out. Okay, and you just want to dust your, with very, very little water. So as we, I mean, not water, rice flour, because we don't want to dry out our wrappers. So the difference between a glutinous flour, which is all-purpose whole wheat or wheat, is you can actually make all your wrappers in one go and then wrap. For the gluten free version, we actually have to do it one by one, or else the wrappers will dry out really quickly. So I'm just gonna rip a few small niblets. So each niblet is gonna be about the size of the biggest marble you've ever played with. So smaller than the size of an eyeball, something like this. So like this will be perfect. I'm just gonna do 3 at a time because I don't want the wrappers to dry out, as I said. And I have some wooden rolling pin over here. Keep your oil close to you because you always want to rehydrate your wrapper and also your rolling pin with some oil so it doesn't stick. All right. Then you're gonna roll it into a ball. And then you're gonna roll it into a thin wrapper. So it doesn't have to be exactly round because the Sui Mai is an open-faced dim sum. All right, so what you want to do is to make sure that it's thin enough that's malleable and won't crack. If it's not thin enough, it will crack really easy. All right, so something like this is what you're trying to get to. You hold it through the light and you can see your fingers behind it, and that's kind of the level of translucentness that you want. And it kind of is going to cover your whole palm, okay? All right, I'm gonna come closer. I'm gonna show you what the wrapper should be. It should be quite malleable and it should cover the palm of your hand, okay? All right, so your first Sui Mai, this is very exciting. I'm going to use a tablespoon. Make sure that you get some pork and some shrimp in here. Yep, you're gonna put like the size of a golf ball, okay, into here. All right, so we're gonna make roses later on, right? But this is the traditional Sui Mai, and I'm gonna do this first so you can actually get the hang of it. All right, so you wanna use your 2 fingers and make like a taco, and then there's a hole in between your forefinger and your thumb. You're gonna put that in the middle, and here you go. You're going to make sure that it looks really pretty by turning the bottom around. And then you can pat the bottom flat, put it on top of your carrot, and go pick out a goji berry and put that on top like this. And here's your Sui Mai. All right, so this is the regular form of Sui Mai. So for those who want to do the rose, you're going to have to rip about 5 of these pebbles. They all have to be some sort of round. If you don't roll it round, you can use a cookie cutter or a wide glass, and you can make it round. Okay, so what we're gonna do is to have 5 little pebbles the same size, okay? All right, so I'm going to make sure that everybody sees what I'm doing, and you can see that all 5 pebbles are around the same size. This one might be a little bit smaller, so we're just gonna add a little bit of that in there. And then we're going to roll each of them out individually. All right, so be a little bit patient. Make sure that there's oil on your hand and the rolling pin so then your wrapper doesn't stick. And the easier way to have a uniform wrapper is to roll out one side, lift the wrapper up carefully, and turn the wrapper about 90 degrees and roll it out again, and turn it out 90 degrees and roll it out again. Okay, so same way to measure it, it's about the same size as your palm. All right, so one of this is done, and if you want to be perfect circle, go ahead and now you can go get a cup. I'm gonna go get a either a nice cup like this or a glass, that you can use to cut this out into a circle. Okay, and those of you who have cookie cutters at home can use that. So now we have a perfect circle. We're going to set this aside and we're going to go ahead and roll out the other 4. Okay? Okay, you're going to work a little bit quick because the wrappers are going to dry out if you don't keep an eye on it. So once again, I roll it out and then I turn it halfway, about 90 degrees, and I roll it out again. I take good care about my wrapper. As I said, dim sum means a little piece of your heart. So you do want to give your heart into making this dim sum. All right, so your second one is about done, and we're going to cut it out again with our cookie cutter or your glass or your cup. Okay. And the second one you can put on top of the first one. So you're making 2 circles like this that are overlapping, okay? All right, third one. And those of you who are watching live, you know you can rewind the video and review what I've taught in previous minutes of the video. So if your wrapper is sticking, you know that there's not enough oil. So just a little dollop of oil on the bottom and your hands to help it work. So this is only for gluten-free wrappers, right? If you have all-purpose flour or bread flour, you would dust it with flour. So this is a major difference between gluten-free flour and all-purpose and bread flour, okay? And it's hard to find gluten-free dim sum because it's so hard to maneuver. But I am actually coming out with a dumpling mix in the next few months. It's a gluten-free dumpling mix, and it'll be essentially the recipe of today's wrapper, and it'll be in a nice packet that you don't have to measure out, and it's already pre-measured for you. You just have to add the oil and the boiling water. And I will come up with videos that you can follow along with me like today. All right, so the third one, again, you're going to place it on top of the other 2, and then 2 more. So bear with me because we're making nice Sui Mai roses, and it's a lot more work, right? So it is Mother's Day, and if you show up to your mother's door with a nice piece of rose Sui Mai, she's going to be so happy. Yeah, and a reminder, you know, contactless drop-off is the better option, right? Okay, cool. So, 4th one is done. And then I'm so excited, we're on our last one. Okay, slowly put that again on top of the 4th one. And then you have one last one that I'm going to roll out. And that's going to be the basis of our Sui Mai flour, our Sui Mai roses, or Sui Mai florets, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be pretty. Okay. All right, so our last one is done. I'm just going to cut that out. Make it a nice circle. All right. There you go. We're laying them one by one, overlapping each other. And now you're going to go get your filling. And you only want about a tablespoon of filling, or else it's going to be a huge Sui Mai, right? All right, so use your hands and take it off the spoon. Oops. Take it off the spoon. And you want to disperse the filling in a nice line. You don't want too much on each, okay? So you want to make sure that the filling, like a tablespoon of filling, goes all the way from one wrapper to the last one. And it should only be about 1 tablespoon. I'm gonna get a shrimp here. Okay, cool. So here we are. If you can see me, I have the wrapper laid down and 5 different layers. And now I'm going to fold the bottom over the filling like this. Okay, those of you who think that this is complicated can go back to the regular Sui Mai. You see that I only made that in about a couple seconds. Okay, so the wrapper goes like this. And then now you want to pick one side and start rolling it into a shape of a flower. Okay, and you're just going to roll it into a rose shape. And use your fingers to pinch it down really nicely so then it'll sit on top of your carrot. So I'm going to come over and show you what I've done. And we've made a Sui Mai rose. Isn't that pretty? This is a bit thick too, so you would not steam them in the same steamer basket as your regular Sui Mai. Okay, so because these take a little bit longer to cook, the regular Sui Mai is a bit smaller, so you want to separate them. And it is a meat inside. If you're doing vegetables inside, then it doesn't have to be so finicky. You can put the regular Sui Mai with the rose Sui Mai. All right, so I'm going to do one more of each, and then we can get ready to do some yoga. All right. So the first Sui Mai, let's go and review that. It's just a small round piece, and you're going to roll it out and cover the size of your palm. And then when you hold it out into the light, you can see through it. Okay. This is a little bit big, so I'm just going to tear off some of the outer parts of it. Oops. Okay, so this is the size that you want to cover your palm. You're going to grab your filling. It's going to be about the size of a golf ball. And fill the middle of your Sui Mai wrapper. Okay. And then I'm going to come over, be closer to the camera, fold it like a taco, and then in that circle between your forefinger and thumb, press it in, and then you're going to rotate the wrapper around the filling and press it down and flat, and it's going to go on top of your carrot or parchment paper. You're going to choose a garnish. I have some goji berries here. They're highly available anywhere now. They're great in antioxidants, mainly because of the red color. And one more time, I will do another rose. So if you guys want to bear with me one more time. So rip 5 different pebbled size Sui Mai wrapper, okay? And then you're going to roll each one separately and make it round. So if you don't want to cut it round, it's just not going to look as pretty. But it still works if it's not completely round, right? Okay, so I'm going to make 5 wrappers. And if you want to just get 1-ton wrappers from Save on Food or TNT, and you want to get the ones that are yellow, and then you can just cut them with a cookie cutter into round circular shapes and make the rose. But that will not be gluten-free. So this is a gluten-free recipe that I've tested many times in my in-person cooking classes. So I'd love to share that with you here on Facebook, and hopefully you can make it for your friends who are celiac and those who have gluten intolerance, right? That miss dim sum a lot. I know my boyfriend misses dim sum a lot, mainly because he is now vegetarian and also celiac. Oops, now it's sticking. So these are problems that you'll come in contact with. So for the gluten-free flour, make sure that there's enough oil on your rolling pin and the bottom of your working surface. And then roll it out and cut out the circle with your glass and set it aside on top. And just 3 more, and then we're done. And hopefully you guys enjoyed spending some time with me on a Sunday, and we're all quarantined at home to help flatten the curve. But today you get to spend time making dim sum, and all the donations for the Eventbrite link that is in the events page will be donated to delivering masks to local clinics in Vancouver and Burnaby. I think my friend is going all over lower like Greater Vancouver region, Mill District. Okay, so another few more, 1 more rose, and we can put our Sui Mai into steaming. So these roses will take about 12 minutes to steam because you have to cook the wrapper as well as the pork. And the smaller ones that are not in rose shape take about 10 minutes, so maybe like 2 minutes less. Make sure it's cooked through. You'll see the pork change color into a more opaque and whitish color. And the shrimp will turn pink. So yeah, you'll definitely know everything has been cooked. Yeah, and then for the roses, you can also add a goji berry on top too, just to make it prettier. All right, so now we have 5 different round wrappers. Again, I'm going to use about a tablespoon of filling, and just make sure that the filling spans all 5 wrappers. And we are going to roll them. Okay, so now it's all here. I'm going to fold the bottom up. Almost in half. And then we're going to take one side and start rolling it onto itself like a roulade. And that will be your dim sum rose of the day. Yay! All right. There you go. Another rose. Make sure all the ends are tucked in, and then you can use the goji berry in the middle. And this one might fill up, 3 or 4 carrot browns that we've cut also. So I will get ready for some yoga, and hopefully you guys can make a few more, maybe with your daughter or mom at home. And for the cooking part, so make sure that you have a pot of water that will fit your plate or steamer basket. Turn the water on to high so it's boiling, all right? And then you want to cover it with your steamer basket cover, or just cover it with the pot lid. The pot is very hot, so I'm going to use a oven mitt. Okay, here, if you have a plate You want to use one of these racks that you can find anywhere in TNT or even in Save on Foods. They have them. I've seen them. If you don't find it, you can also just use a bowl and turn it upside down. And then your plate can go on top of it with some boiling water. Make sure the water is boiling. And then you would put your plate on top of the upside down bowl, like that. And if you don't have the steamer basket, don't worry about it. Just put a lid over this guy and it'll steam for about 12 minutes if they're big. If they're small, about 10 minutes. And you can use some of my True Nosh dipping sauces for the sauce. I have hot sauces and some Asian sauces. You can check out our website, truenosh.com, for all gluten-free, plant-based, and sugar-free products. And hopefully we'll see you here again live or in one of my Zoom classes. And if you want to join us for yoga, don't blink. We'll be right back. I'm just going to transfer our attention to my living room and get some music ready, and we'll start off with a mini vinyasa yoga session on a Sunday afternoon. All right, thanks for joining us in the kitchen section, and we'll see you in the yoga studio. Thanks.